Hello, you people out there in internet land. My name is Britt Kolick. I use they, she pronouns. I'm a professional stage manager, and today I want to talk about being homesick because it's something that I don't think we talk about a lot in an industry that requires us to get up and move a lot. And I think I just want people to know it's okay, you're not alone. I was a person who never, I think, really got homesick. I went to college out of state. Granted, it was like 2 hours away from where I lived, but I didn't go home until like 6 weeks into school when we had a fall break. I would do summer stock in the same area. It was very convenient for me to go home, but I never really wanted to go home unless there was an emergency or something because I enjoyed where I was at. I've traveled abroad for extensive periods of time. I have been away from home for extensive periods of time in the United States where I could easily drive back. So it was very weird for me to get to Connecticut, and the first night I'm there, I just had this overwhelming feeling of like loneliness and being homesick, and I just started crying. And I realized coming back, I'm currently on, we have like 4 days off between the runs of shows. We'll do 4 shows and then we'll have like 4 days off. And so I'm back in New York, and what I realized is I had made a very big life decision to move to New York. That came with its own feelings and its own emotions surrounding the move. And I was still dealing with all of that when I got this gig to go to Connecticut. So I was still in the midst of processing one set of emotions, and this whole new set came in that was actually pretty euphoric. I was so excited to get this gig. I'm very happy to be working on this gig. I very much enjoyed my time there, and hope, you know, we're gonna have a great run and I get to just continue doing what I love to do. But I realized, okay, cool, now I've got 2 different things with 2 different sets of emotions that I need to feel and experience. And when I got to Connecticut, I was picked up at the train station by my production manager, who's a great guy. He dropped me at the housing, showed me where everything was, where the theater was, and then he was very kind because I don't have a vehicle currently. He asked me if I wanted to go grocery shopping. So we went grocery shopping, I grabbed my stuff, went back to the cast house that they provided, and then I went to rehearsal. And what I learned really quickly is when I'm in rehearsal, it's like a light switch. I'm in rehearsal mode, which is really good because I have spent years practicing the art of dropping my baggage at the door and going in. So when I'm in rehearsal, and I feel great because I love being in rehearsal. I know what needs to happen, I know what needs to get done. It's very, no matter where you're at, rehearsals run pretty similar. You have to take breaks at the 55 or the 80. You're filling out a report. You're talking with, you know, everybody. You're chatting on breaks, whatever. It's all very similar. So it was an environment that I knew and was comfortable in, even though I walked in to an environment that had, I think, 4, 5, 7 guys that I'd never met. They just knew that a new stage manager was coming, and there I was. And I went in, I think I got into Connecticut at 1:40. Rehearsal was at 3, and I was there for that 3 o'clock start. And then I went home, and I was home alone. I'm currently, I guess, because I'm gonna live there when I go back, in what is called like a Connecticut 3-family home. So it's like one giant house, and every level is its own abode. So I was on the 1st floor, my music director on the 2nd, our TD actually lives on the 3rd floor. So the whole house was occupied, and it's Connecticut, so the house is older, so I could hear my music director, my director, like walking around upstairs, and every once in a while, like I'd hear sort of the mufflings of a TV, but I was alone on my floor. I was going to have one of our actors come in. He was going to be living in the house for the duration of tech and show, and then our lighting designer as well came in for tech and was living in the house, living on my floor of the house as well. But for the first 3 or 4 days, I was alone, and I had realized I hadn't been alone in a while, which was sort of crazy to think about because I'm very comfortable being alone. I've spent a lot of time alone. I had realized that I had gone from an environment where I was living with my parents and my grandmother, and moving to New York, I moved in with 2 roommates. Every night they came home and we would chat and watch TV, and one of their boyfriends came over and we were playing like board games and stuff, and there was always people. And moving into an older house just alone it's very lonely. It was very quiet. And I remember telling my friend that I was like, I'm alone, and she goes, that must be very nice though, like you never really get to be alone anymore, like it must be cool to be alone. And I thought, I wish it was one of those things. I wish it was one of those things where I wanted to be alone. Because I think if I had phrased it like that, I would have felt better, but I felt lonely and homesick. And it was funny because I wasn't necessarily homesick for Pittsburgh, I was also homesick for New York. It got easier when a classmate joined and my lighting designer joined, and the house didn't feel as lonely or as sort of big and empty. Rehearsals were also very long. We were in tech. I was filling my days mostly with prep. I love to prep emails. I was prepping a lot of media calls as well to have those scheduled to send out, because I knew I was going to be in New York and I didn't want to drop the ball on those reminders. But I did all of my rehearsal reports, performance reports, all of that sort of thing. I got all of that ready. I had things to do. I had like my health insurance I was figuring out. I worked on the video. I worked on some thumbnails. But yeah, the homesickness really hit, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I don't think people do talk about it enough. I had a buddy that went abroad for, I want to say it was a 9-month contract, and she looked like she was having the time of her life online. And when we would text every rare occasions, it wasn't often, but she would be homesick and she would miss things, or she would miss like hanging out. We would have phone calls or FaceTimes, which is really great and always helps, but I think social media gives people unrealistic expectations. I had a lot of people who were really happy and excited for me, and I was happy and excited for myself in this opportunity, but it made it hard to accept that I had feelings of like homesickness and loneliness. Because it's true, I'm doing something really cool. I got a job. That's great. That is a great thing to happen. And it can still be a great thing to happen, and you can still feel, and I can still feel homesick and lonely. And those two don't have to be mutually exclusive. It can still be a really great job and a really great opportunity, but I can still feel all of the emotions. And I had to come to terms with that. I'm like, yeah, just because this is a really good opportunity doesn't mean that I can't feel this way, because these are my feelings and you should feel them. And it's perfectly okay and normal. And to anyone out there who is feeling homesick, I think my recommendations are watch sports from your hometown, because they will show shots. I was watching the Steeler game literally the Sunday before I left because see shots of the city. I passed Acrisure Stadium a lot in my commutes down there, so it was very comforting to do that. Technology is great. We have text, we have FaceTime, you can call somebody, comfort shows. I think I put on the Munsters because my grandfather and I used to watch that together, and the house gave me like very vibes of like my grandparents' house, so I'd throw on the Munsters as background noise while I worked, and it helped. I journaled, I processed, and in the end I got over it. I said, you know what, I'm gonna be back in New York in 6 days, 5 days, 4 days. I sort of counted down, and then I got back to New York. And not to say that I can't wait to go back to Connecticut, but I thought it's really nice that I'm gonna have balance now, that I'm gonna be able to go up, do my job, come back, live my life. It's gonna be great. If this video helps anyone out there, drink water, give grace, and I'll see you in the next one.